Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. Let's start this story by saying this happened 2 years ago. I'm now happily married with 2 children and regret absolutely nothing. I was with my ex for 4 years. I noticed she became extremely controlling. I had to give every little detail of my day and tell her my schedule in advance. If I deviated even slightly, she would explode. "Where were you? Why didn't you tell me? Who were you with?" she'd demand. She blamed it on bad feelings from previous relationships where she'd been cheated on. I had never once strayed or given her reason to doubt me, but she kept insisting. "I just need to know where you are at all times," she'd say. "It's for my peace of mind." It felt completely inappropriate for my fiancé to act this way. The real story begins when she asked for my schedule to make plans. My work schedule was more complicated than hers, as I could take time off whenever I wanted if I put in extra hours and completed my projects. I was good friends with a coworker at her company. Still am, actually. We laugh about this situation even now, and he makes sure to bring it up whenever he sees her. "Hey, I want to do something special for her," I texted him one day. "Can you let me know her schedule?" They both worked at the same manufacturing plant. He was in production and she managed shipping. What he told me didn't match what she'd been telling me. Without my knowledge, she had been skipping her usual overtime shifts. She normally worked 12-hour days Monday through Friday, but for the past few months, she'd been taking every Wednesday afternoon off, right around when she started getting super controlling. I had plenty of time off saved up, so taking a Wednesday off wasn't an issue. When the day came, I put on my work clothes and pretended to leave. "Have a good day, babe," she called out as I walked to my car. Instead of leaving, I parked across the street at a shopping center where I could see both exits of our apartment complex. After about an hour, I spotted a distinctive red Mustang with a custom decal, her cousin-in-law's car. I prepared for this by setting up an old laptop in our home office, positioned to view the living room, bedroom door, bathroom, and kitchen. I had remote access set up with motion detection alerts. The laptop pinged, and I logged in. He walked right in without knocking, clearly not his first visit. "I've missed you," she said, immediately starting to unbutton his shirt while kissing him. I quickly created a streaming link and sent it to both our family and friend group chats, where they were both members. They didn't even try to hide, right there on our couch in full view of the camera. Within minutes, my phone was blowing up with calls from friends and family. They kept going at it, ignoring the constant ringing until finally, after the 5th call, they took a break. Important note, in my state, you can legally record anything on your personal property. I was the only one on the lease. She couldn't be added due to bad credit. When she finally answered, it was her cousin's mother on speakerphone. "Stop ducking my son right now," his mother screamed. They both froze. What are you talking about?" my ex stammered. "Don't play dumb. We can all see the live stream." She grabbed every cushion to cover herself while he stumbled around trying to get dressed. He tripped and smacked his head on my coffee table, leaving a dent. By then, I'd walked back to the complex. "Going somewhere?" I asked as he ran out. He stopped dead, started crying. "I'm so sorry, man, I'm so sorry." What happened next cost me 6 weeks in a cast, but since he was trespassing, I avoided serious trouble. He missed quite a few family gatherings while recovering. When I went upstairs, she was dressed and sobbing. "Is that snot or something else on your face?" I asked coldly. "Actually, don't answer that. You have 1 hour to get your stuff and get out." Everything except her clothes, makeup, and some kitchen items was mine. Her family wouldn't take her in. Too embarrassed. Her brothers refused, and her cousin's mom kicked him out too. Word spread fast in our small town, and, well, let's just say her dating options became very limited. The next one is an entitled people story. I bought my house 3 years ago in what seemed like a nice, quiet neighborhood. The HOA fees weren't too bad compared to other places I looked at, and the community had a pool and some other amenities that made it seem worth it. For the first 2 years, everything was fine. I paid my dues on time, kept my lawn mowed, and generally minded my own business. I'm not the type to make waves or get involved in neighborhood drama. I work from home as a software developer, so I spend most of my time inside anyway. The trouble started when our longtime HOA president moved away and a new board was elected. The new president was this guy who'd lived in the neighborhood for about 6 months. Let's just say he took his new power very seriously from day one. Within a week of taking over, every house in the neighborhood got a letter outlining new enforcement procedures for existing rules. Nothing had actually changed in the rule book, but suddenly they were going to be strictly enforcing every single line item. The letter mentioned increased fines and rapid escalation procedures for violations. Most people just rolled their eyes and went on with their lives. I did too at first. Then one day, I went out to my driveway to head to the grocery store and found a bright yellow boot on my car. You know, one of those metal clamps they put on your wheels so you can't drive away? Yeah, that. There was a notice stuck under my windshield wiper stating I was in violation of HOA parking regulations and owed a $350 fine plus a $650 administrative fee for the boot placement. $1,000 for parking in my own driveway. I was absolutely livid. I immediately called the number on the notice, which went to the HOA management company. The woman who answered sounded bored out of her mind and told me that according to their records, I was in violation of Section 7.3 of the HOA bylaws. What exactly is Section 7.3? I asked. She sighed like I was wasting her time and said, vehicles must be parked in garages or designated parking areas. Your car was parked outside of a designated area. It's in my driveway, my own driveway. How is that not a designated parking area? Sir, according to our rules, driveways are for temporary loading and unloading only. Overnight parking is restricted to garages or street parking. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've been parking in my driveway for 3 years and it's never been an issue before. The board is now enforcing all regulations as written. If you'd like to appeal, you can submit a written request that will be reviewed at the next board meeting in 2 weeks. In the meantime, the boot will remain in place until payment is received. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Then I dug out my copy of the HOA bylaws that I'd stashed in a drawer somewhere when I bought the house. I found Section 7.3, and sure enough, there was some vague language about designated parking areas and temporary use of driveways, but it was so poorly written it could be interpreted multiple ways. I walked around the neighborhood to cool off and noticed something interesting. Every board member's house had cars parked in their driveways. No boots. What a coincidence. I wasn't about to pay $1,000 for this nonsense, and I couldn't wait 2 weeks for a board meeting when I needed my car, so I called a locksmith who specialized in removing boots. He came out, took one look at it, and laughed. This isn't even a real parking enforcement boot, he told me. It's just a cheap one anyone can buy online. Completely illegal for them to use these. He removed it in about 2 minutes and charged me $75. I was free. I moved my car into the garage just to avoid further hassle and decided to fight this properly. First, I took pictures of all the board members' houses showing their cars parked in driveways. Then I went through the bylaws with a fine-tooth comb. There was nothing explicit forbidding driveway parking, just that vague language that had never been enforced before. Next, I called a lawyer friend who specialized in real estate. She reviewed everything and confirmed what I suspected. The HOA was way overstepping its authority. She helped me draft a letter citing specific legal codes they were violating by placing unauthorized boots on private property and imposing arbitrary fines without proper notice or procedure. I made copies of this letter and distributed it to every house in the neighborhood, along with photos showing the selective enforcement. I wanted everyone to know what was happening. The response was immediate. My phone started blowing up with texts and calls from neighbors who'd also received violations for things that had never been issues before. One family got fined because their basketball hoop was 3 inches too close to the sidewalk. Another was cited because their garbage cans were visible from the street at 5:30 p.m. when the rules said they could be out until 6 p.m. It turned out nearly half the neighborhood had received some kind of violation notice in the past month, with fines ranging from $100 to over $1,000. The new board was on a power trip and people were fed up. We organized an emergency neighborhood meeting at the community center. Nearly every homeowner showed up, which had never happened before. The board members came too, looking uncomfortable as they faced a room full of angry neighbors. The HOA president tried to defend their actions, saying they were just enforcing the rules as written, and that consistency was important for property values. Nobody was buying it. My lawyer friend attended and explained that many of the fines were legally unenforceable, and that the boot on my car constituted illegal detention of private property. She mentioned that a class action lawsuit was a possibility if the board didn't back down. That got their attention. The color drained from the HOA president's face when she mentioned class action. One of the older residents, who'd lived there since the neighborhood was built, stood up and called for an immediate vote to remove the current board. According to the bylaws, a 2/3 majority of homeowners could call for removal of board members for cause. The vote wasn't even close. The entire board was removed that night. But our troubles weren't over. The management company still had my boot and was demanding payment. They sent me a letter threatening to put a lien on my house if I didn't pay the fine within 30 days. So I escalated. My lawyer filed a formal complaint with the state's Real Estate Commission, which oversees HOA management companies. We included evidence of selective enforcement, improper notification procedures, and the illegal use of car boots on private property. The commission took it seriously. They launched an investigation and found the management company had been pulling these stunts in several communities they managed. Turned out they got a percentage of all fines collected, which explained their enthusiasm for enforcement. 3 months later, the management company was fined $25,000 by the state and put on probation. They were ordered to refund all improper fines they'd collected in our neighborhood over the past 6 months. We elected a new board of reasonable people who understood that an HOA should serve the community, not rule it like a small dictatorship. The first thing they did was clarify the parking rules. Driveway parking was explicitly permitted going forward. As for the former board president, he put his house up for sale about a month after being voted out. I guess he didn't enjoy living in a neighborhood where he couldn't power trip anymore. The whole experience taught me a valuable lesson about standing up to bullies, even when they hide behind official-sounding titles and rulebooks. It also showed me the power of community action. Alone, I was just one angry homeowner, but together we were able to effect real change. I still live in the same house, and I park in my driveway whenever I want. Sometimes I even park a little crooked just because I can. Would I have preferred not to go through all this drama? Absolutely. But there's something satisfying about knowing that we fought back against unreasonable authority and won. And every time I pull into my driveway now, I smile, thinking about how that stupid yellow boot led to real positive change in our neighborhood. And the $75 I paid the locksmith? Best money I ever spent. Update. It's been about a year since all that drama with the HOA and the car boot, and I figured I should share how things turned out since then. Spoiler alert. Karma has a way of coming back around. After we kicked out the old board and got the management company investigated, things settled down for a while. Our new board was made up of reasonable people who actually lived in the neighborhood for years and understood that the HOA was supposed to maintain the community, not micromanage everyone's lives. We rewrote some of the vague rules to be clearer, including the parking policy that now explicitly states residents can park in their own driveways without fear of boots or fines. Common sense stuff, really, but this story doesn't end there. About 3 months after everything calmed down, I got a certified letter in the mail. It was from a law firm representing the old management company. They were demanding I pay $5,000 for defamation and business interference because of the complaint I filed with the State Real Estate Commission. According to them, my actions had caused them to lose several HOA contracts. My first reaction was panic. I'm not rich, and fighting a legal battle wasn't in my budget. But then I remembered how they tried to intimidate me before, and I wasn't about to let them do it again. I called my lawyer friend who had helped us before, and she laughed when I read her the letter. "This is textbook intimidation," she told me. "They're hoping you'll get scared and pay them to go away, but you filed a legitimate complaint with a government agency, and that's protected speech. They don't have a case." She offered to write a response letter for a small fee, which I gladly paid. Her letter basically told them to pound sand in legal terms, citing the state investigation findings and reminding them that truth is an absolute defense to defamation. We never heard back from them after that. I guess they realized I wasn't an easy target. Meanwhile, the former HOA president who had put his house up for sale was having trouble finding a buyer. Turns out, when you've made half the neighborhood hate you, word gets around to potential buyers. After 6 months on the market, he finally sold his house for well below asking price. I ran into him at the grocery store right before he moved out. He glared at me like I was personally responsible for all his problems. I just smiled and waved. The most interesting development came about 8 months after the whole ordeal. I got a call from someone at the district attorney's office. They wanted to talk to me about the old management company. Apparently, after our complaint triggered the initial investigation, they found evidence of much more serious financial misconduct. I met with an investigator who explained that the management company hadn't just been overzealous with fines, they'd been skimming money from HOA accounts across multiple communities. They would collect dues and fines, take their cut, which was larger than what their contracts allowed, and then manipulate the books to hide the discrepancies. The DA wanted me to make a statement about my experience with them, which I did. They were building a case against the company's owners for fraud and embezzlement. I wasn't the star witness or anything, but it felt good to be part of bringing them to justice. Last month, it all came to a head. The management company's 2 owners were charged with multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and financial elder abuse. Turns out they had been specifically targeting communities with older residents who were less likely to scrutinize financial statements. The local news ran a big story about it, and several other communities came forward with similar experiences. The new management company our HOA hired is actually decent. They're transparent about finances, responsive to residents, and don't try to enforce ridiculous interpretations of the rules. What a concept! But here's the part that really gave me satisfaction. Last week I received a check in the mail for $1,750. It was from the state's restitution fund, representing the $1,000 fine they tried to charge me, plus the $75 I paid the locksmith and additional damages. The letter explained that as part of a plea deal, the former management company owners had to pay into a fund to compensate residents who had been improperly fined. I hadn't even filed a claim for this money. The DA's office had gone through all the records and identified people who deserved restitution. I guess standing up and fighting back had paid off in more ways than I expected. We had our annual HOA meeting last month, and for the first time since I've lived here, it was actually pleasant. People brought snacks, we discussed some genuine improvements to the community park, and nobody got into arguments about rule enforcement. The new board members asked for input instead of just dictating rules, and people actually volunteered for committees. My next-door neighbor, who's lived here for over 20 years, pulled me aside after the meeting. "I've got to thank you," he said. "This place hasn't felt like a community in a long time. Most of us were just keeping our heads down, trying not to get fined. Now it feels like we actually live in a neighborhood again, not a prison camp." That felt pretty good to hear. I've learned a lot from this experience. I learned that standing up to bullies might be scary at first, but it's worth it. I learned that when people come together, they can affect real change in their community. And I learned that sometimes fighting for what's right doesn't just help you, it helps everyone around you too. A few people have suggested I run for the HOA board myself, but I'm not really interested. I'm content knowing that the people in charge now are reasonable and fair. I still work from home, still keep to myself most of the time, but I feel more connected to my community now. I wave to neighbors when I see them, and sometimes we chat about normal neighbor stuff instead of HOA drama. The other day, I helped an elderly couple down the street set up their new TV. Before all this happened, I probably wouldn't have even known their names. Now we're friends. They invited me over for dinner next week. As for my car, it's still parked in my driveway most of the time. No boots, no fines, no drama, just the way it should be. Sometimes I look at that check for $1,750 and think about framing it as a reminder that standing up for yourself pays off. But I'll probably just deposit it and use the money for something practical. Maybe I'll repave part of my driveway that's starting to crack. After all, I plan to be parking there for a long time to come. The next one is a malicious compliance story. A while back, my wife and I were buying our house after a few years of rental. There was a delay in the new house being ready, so we moved in with my mother for a few weeks. During that time, I stashed some stuff at work, including bringing in my chair, a very nice Herman Miller Aeron I had gotten secondhand. The office chairs were old, standard serviceable, but not exactly nice. After a few days, I noticed that my chair would be in the conference room every morning. No problem, I just wheeled it back to my desk. I was working 8 to 4 to avoid traffic, so was usually in first. The CEO, of about 120 people, would usually not arrive until about noon and take later meetings when most of the staff were away. After a few days, the chair kept ending up at his desk. Open plan, thankfully, so I just took it back every morning. I wasn't foolish enough to go into the CEO's office. He'd shoot me a dirty look every morning, but that was it. After a few more days of this back and forward, the CEO's assistant, who was a lovely person who I felt immense pity for, approached me and told me that the CEO didn't think it was appropriate that I had a nicer chair than him. People would think that my desk belonged to the CEO, and it was stressing her out having to basically fight for it every day on his behalf. I told her I understood completely and would stop fighting over it. I took it out of the office that lunchtime and reclaimed a normal office chair. The next day, she came over and asked where the chair was. I said with an incredibly straight face that I thought since it wasn't appropriate, I just took it to my car. She had a super stunned look, but just kind of ran off. Since I was almost always first in, I always got parking near the building. Pretty much everyone got to walk past my car on the way into the office and see my chair in the boot for a few more weeks. However, given his cowardly nature, I never got approached about it again. To this day, I'm 100% certain they thought I was just going to give in and let him have my chair. Instead, I got the joy of telling everyone the honest truth about why my chair was in my car for weeks. The next one is an entitled people story. I, 23F, got married at 21 in a big South Asian wedding in 2023. Before I get into what happened, some quick backstory. My husband has a cousin, let's call her Sarah, 37F. Her marriage fell apart in 2020, and she was practically raised by my mother-in-law, so they're extremely close. A month before my wedding, we had our henna night, and Sarah showed up wearing the exact same colors I had planned to wear, which were actually her own henna clothes from her canceled wedding. When my sister confronted her, saying, "We literally discussed the colors last week," Sarah just shrugged and said, "I don't remember that conversation." Fast forward to my wedding day. I was hidden away before my entrance, excited and nervous when my bridesmaids FaceTimed me to show me the hall. That's when I saw Sarah in a red and gold bridal dress. In South Asian weddings, red is the traditional bridal color. She had told everyone she would wear gold. I wore white, but it was confusing in photos, and I could hear guests whispering, "Wait, which one is the bride?" It was humiliating. "Did she seriously wear her wedding dress?" I whispered to my best friend on the phone. "She cut off the train to make it different," my friend replied, rolling her eyes. Sarah took photos on stage when I wasn't there, didn't congratulate us, and didn't even give a card. It's not about gifts, but basic respect. Then she started the drama. When it was time to leave for my husband's house, she ran to my mother-in-law crying, claiming one of my uncles had threatened her. I was right there when my uncle actually said, "You're like her sister now. You should have each other's back." She twisted his words completely. "He threatened to break my legs," she wailed to anyone who would listen. I was ready to jump out of the car and confront her, but my sisters held me back. "Not today," they said. "Don't let her ruin this moment." At my husband's house during the traditional games, the tension was thick. Later, I overheard them still discussing the drama, so I walked in and asked, "What's the problem now?" Sarah looked at me with this smirk and said, "Are you jealous of me or something?" I couldn't believe her audacity. "Jealous of what exactly? I'm 21, you're 37, you wore your bridal dress to my wedding, and you've made everyone miserable." We tried to talk privately, but she kept saying things like, "Your family doesn't know how to behave in proper society." I told her firmly, "Never mention my family again." Things only escalated from there. My husband supported me completely because he knew how Sarah could be. The next day, we learned that my mother-in-law and Sarah's mom had actually told her to get a new dress and offered to buy it. She had refused, saying, "I want to wear my wedding dress. I decided this the day she got engaged." A week later, we visited her after her surgery, bringing chocolates. I said, "Hope you're feeling better," and she just lifted her eye mask, looked me up and down with disgust, and put it back without a word. That was it for me. I told my in-laws I would never greet her again. As a Muslim, if someone greets you, you greet them back. During another family gathering, she suddenly started screaming, "I'm not going to another ducking wedding after last time." I just got up and left. The worst incident happened during a family funeral in early 2024. She started verbally attacking my husband for dropping his grandmother home. "You're such a mama's boy!" she screamed. When my brother-in-law asked her to move aside, she started yelling about me. "This crackhead who's barely been here 5 minutes!" I was pacing around, ready to physically remove her from the house, and called my husband. "Come home right now before I throw her out myself." He arrived within minutes, and she stormed out, dragging her mother with her. Last month, everything exploded. We were at another family gathering, and my husband was settling some wedding expenses with his mom. His mother started lecturing us about saving money when we lived with her, going on and on in front of several people. Every time my mother-in-law criticized us, I could see Sarah smirking while she massaged Grandma's feet, clearly enjoying our discomfort. "Can we not discuss money right now?" I said politely, adding that there were certain people present whom I'd rather not hear our financial details. I stepped out for a phone call, but I could hear Sarah mockingly saying, "What am I going to do with 2,000 pounds?" and making snide comments about our finances. Something in me snapped. I stormed back in and shouted, "Sarah, why the duck are you talking about something you know nothing about?" She pulled her usual card. "I'm 37, you need to respect me." I lost it completely. "Have you seen yourself? You're a stupid ducking idiot." I was about to leave, but turned back, ready to hit her. My husband had to drag me upstairs while I was still shouting incoherently. Honestly, I was so angry I blacked out and can't even remember what I said. Sarah's mom came up to check on me, but I had years of pent-up anger over how she ruined my wedding, made every family gathering uncomfortable, and constantly provoked me. Earlier that day, I had invited my mother-in-law to visit our new place. They still haven't visited since we moved out, and mentioned that another cousin should join. My mother-in-law later scolded me for saying this in front of Sarah. Once again, I was painted as the villain, with everyone saying I handled it wrong. But why were our financial matters being discussed in front of her in the first place? Now, my mother-in-law and Sarah's mom have decided that Sarah and I can't be in the same room during family gatherings. This means for Eid, family dinners, birthdays, either she attends or I attend, not both. It feels incredibly unfair. I'm the new daughter-in-law in this family. Yet I'm the one who has to adjust everything. Sarah didn't even invite anyone to her own wedding, so why can't she go to her in-laws instead? Why should I give up my place in my husband's family because she can't behave properly? People keep warning me that if I had hit her, she would have called the police, but honestly, I'm tired of always having to be the bigger person while she faces no consequences for her actions. Am I wrong for finally standing up for myself, or should I just keep quiet to avoid more drama? Anyway,